call this meeting to order. If we could have a roll call, please, Mr. Frazier.
President Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Davidson? Here. Dr. Kopus?
Here.
Mr. Sprague?
If we all could please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. If I could have a motion to approve of the approval of minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second? So moved. Thank you. If you could give us a roll call, please, Mr. Frazier.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Thank you. And now we'll have an update from Crawford Woods Elementary.
Yes, Board, this evening we have our principal, Mr. Aaron Hopkins, and his assistant principal, Sue Ernst, who are here to dazzle us with an update from Crawford Woods Elementary.
It's setting high expectations.
Okay, we good? All right, good afternoon. Hamilton City School Board members and revered Hamilton administrators. You know, for 14 years, I've been getting up here, nervous as all get out, trying to impress you with my words and with my actions. This year, I want to try something a little different than my usual presentations. This year, I want to revisit last year's board presentation. I think it is important to revisit the past so we can see how we arrived at the present and how to continue to move forward in the future. So in last year's presentation, I razzle-dazzled you with my knowledge on our MTSS cone and the 3 tiers as they apply to academics and behaviors. I informed that we plan to have a collaborative plan bells twice a month with each grade level. This was a way to support teachers in their push for Tier 1 instruction. This year, we are holding these meetings 1 time per month. This switch was based on teacher feedback and teacher attendance in the meetings. The teachers voted and agreed to switch out 1 teacher time for a plan bell so we could all meet as a team. This is an example of how the staff and administration work cooperatively at Crawford Woods. While we are talking about the cooperative relationship between staff and administration at Crawford, last year there was a large focus on building positive culture. Now I want you to consider that I can count 8 teachers, 2 secretaries, 1 nurse, 1 interpreter, and 1 librarian that have been working at Crawford Woods prior to me becoming principal. So we have had a lot of staff turnover over the previous 13 years. It took time to get the right people on the bus. I'm proud to point out that last school year, we had 1 teacher leave Crawford Woods for another district. 1. Teacher retention is at an all-time high. It speaks to the mission the teachers at Crawford Woods feel for the job they do and the kids they serve.
We have seen such a drastic reduction in teacher turnover at Crawford Woods, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the members that stepped onto the Crawford Woods bus 10 years ago as a 4th grade teacher. Good afternoon, my name is Sue Ernst. My dedication to student growth as a proud language arts, social studies, and science teacher for 1 year across multiple grade levels. I taught science for 1 year. The rest I did social studies and language arts. Proved to be successful for my students' growth. For the last 3 years, I have had the privilege to work with Aaron as a partner as assistant principal. Aaron and I believe that a unified staff centered around our 100% student growth vision will continue to contribute to not only growth, but to lead to achievement. As any good principal knows, an AP's development starts by taking on all the jobs that the principal doesn't want to do. And that typically includes office and bus referrals. One of our goals last year was to reduce behavior referrals by 50%. Students need to be in class if they are going to learn. We accomplished this goal by empowering the teachers to handle Tier 1 behaviors in the classroom, and we prioritize being more present in the pods working there whenever possible. This was spearheaded at our staff retreat last summer and supported throughout last year. I am proud to announce that while we didn't quite reduce our referrals by 50%, we came very close. We went from a total of 845 referrals in 2022-23 to 457 referrals in 23-24. That is a 46% reduction in referrals. We also know that doesn't mean challenging behaviors aren't happening in the classroom, but it does show that teachers have structures and supports in place that empower them to manage the behaviors in their classroom. This year, we want to continue down that path by looking closer at our Tier 2 and 3 supports. Our PBIS team went to a training in September, and we have more scheduled for the PBIS Tier 2 workshops. The PBIS committee is responding to data and making plans to support teachers and students. Last school year, we also adopted a new curriculum. We implemented the Expeditionary Learning Curriculum, EL. We were in year 2 of implementing Really Great Reading, which is a phonics-based program in grades K to 3. We implemented a robust intervention schedule for students in K to 3. We continued to shift our focus from the literacy collaborative model of education, where we differentiated for every student and spent a lot of time teaching students at their level, but not necessarily at grade level. This past school year, we did a lot less differentiating and a lot more grade level instruction. The focus on literacy is also evident in our library. We are proud to have the highest circulation of checked out books in the district and the creation of an ESL library. This is a testament to meeting the needs of all of our students. In math, we stayed the course with Engage New York curriculum. So to summarize, we had 3 building goals last year for Crawford Woods. They included every student will make at least 1 year's growth in reading and math according to the MAP RIT score by focusing on Tier 1 instruction. Number 2, we were to decrease behavior referrals by 50% by having teachers address Tier 1 behaviors in their classroom. And number 3, we continued to focus on staff morale, efficacy, and building climate and culture by trying to look for wins for teachers through staff support, collaboration, and added morale fun through competitions, dress down days, extra time when possible, and just trying to be more in tune with staff needs.
So I think it's safe to say that we accomplished those goals. Referrals decreased by almost 50%, and we only had 1 teacher leave Crawford Woods. Those are tangible and measurable successes. But how did our focus on Tier 1 impact our student performance? Let me show you, but I think you may already know. At first glance, here are the celebrations. We have gone from a 3-star overall rating in 22-23 to a 3.5-star overall rating in 23-24. We have raised our achievement 1 star from 2 to 3. We have raised our progress score from 3 stars to 4. We have raised our gap closing measure from a score of 3 stars to 4 stars, and we have raised our early literacy score from 2 stars to 3. We went up in every single category. When Mr. Holbrook took over as the superintendent, his number 1 message was that we were a district focused on growth. This shifted the focus away from achievement and placed the focus squarely on growth. This shift levels the playing field, so to say. In a school like Crawford Woods, where many students were behind, teachers can get behind the message of making a year's worth of growth with each student. The growth statistic is measured by the progress score on the report card, which we scored 4 stars. The 4-star rating means there is significant evidence the school exceeded growth expectations. Clearly, a focus on growth is paying off. Gap closing measures the growth and achievement of subgroups. Crawford Woods has several subgroups. We have English language learners, we have Hispanic students, we have students that are economically disadvantaged, we have students that are African American, students that are white, and students with disabilities. Gap closing looks at how each of these subgroups grow and achieve. Our gap closing score went up 1 star from 3 to 4, which suggests that Crawford Woods exceeds state standards in closing educational gaps. Our early literacy score is determined by the number of students who require a RIMP. A RIMP is a Reading Improvement and Monitoring Plan. Basically, this is the number of students who are behind in their reading. Our score goes up when a student starts on a RIMP and then catches up to a point where they no longer need a RIMP. Our score goes down when students are on a RIMP and have to come off the RIMP and then have to go back on the RIMP because they fall behind. The early literacy score is also influenced by the number of students proficient or higher at 3rd grade and the number of students we promote to 4th grade. We improved our score from 2 stars to 3 stars in this category, suggesting that we met state standards in early literacy. We attribute the growth in this category to our achievement at 3rd grade and our robust reading intervention block, where students are grouped into small groups based on assessment data. They are provided intervention through our Title I, ESL, and special education services. Students are then progress monitored every 2 weeks to ensure they are growing. The final measure that I want to review is our achievement measure. Our instructional department really pushed us to focus on Tier 1 the past 2 years. The leadership at Crawford Woods, along with the instructional coaches, really got behind that message. We created goals as a school around improving Tier 1 strategies. Our instructional department adopted the EL curriculum for reading instruction. The teachers at Crawford Woods really had a laser-like focus on Tier 1 instruction. With the endless support of our coaches, I believe it is this focus on Tier 1 that shifted our scores in a positive direction. We are finally starting to impact the achievement of students at Crawford Woods. Our score went from 2 stars to 3. This means that students at Crawford Woods meet state standards in academic achievement. And I'm going to repeat that one more time. Students at Crawford Woods meet state standards in academic achievement. This is a huge success for our school and for our students and our staff. At one time, we were a failing school. We were scoring consistently at or near the bottom of the pack of elementary schools in Hamilton. I am proud to say this is no longer the case. Crawford Woods was the only school that went up in every category. We meet the needs of our diverse population, and with a focus on our English language learners, we are truly proud of our growth. Now, I know I have focused a great deal on last school year, but I continue to tell whomever will listen that we did not work harder last year. We work our hardest every year. We did not spend more time teaching kids last year than previous years. The success and improvement and achievement has been a long time coming. This is where we are 14 years later from where I started as a principal. This is where we are after COVID. If you notice, we were climbing before COVID hit, and post-COVID, we have done nothing but get better each year. You can see that reflected in our achievement score on the report card. So now that we have our scores moving in an acceptable direction, and we have done all the celebrating and recognizing, it is time to focus on the new challenge at hand. How do we keep the scores moving forward and growing more students? The good news is we have some ideas.
And I'm going to share some of those. One way that we are continuing to move forward is based on previous success. We are implementing the EL curriculum in grades K to 2 now. Anytime we change curriculum, we know we need to provide support, and we know it is a heavy lift for our teachers. We worked really hard to train teachers on the LC model of literacy instruction. At that time, we believed it was the very best path for our students. Now the science of reading research suggests that a more explicit approach of instruction with a heavy focus on Tier 1 curriculum is the best pathway forward. The data from our report card supports that. Adopting EL to the primary grades will create more continuity in our vertical alignment. To support this adoption, coaches and administrators are meeting monthly with each grade level team to do backwards planning. Backwards planning starts with the end in mind, so teachers have a clear vision of where they are needed for students to have success by the end. This will be another way to support student growth and achievement.
So reflecting back 14 years ago when I became principal, the demographics at Crawford Woods looked different. We were 60% white, we were 20% African American, and 20% Hispanic. Now we are 50% Hispanic, 30% white, and still about 20% African American. Those are obviously rough estimates, but those numbers are really close to the actual percentages. If you notice, our number of Hispanic students has increased more than double. Along with the influx of Hispanic students, the number of newcomers has increased. Newcomers come to Crawford Woods speaking no English at all, and if they have some English, it is extremely limited. This creates quite a challenge for teachers in the classroom. So the second way that we are going to keep moving forward is to support the teachers with this growing population. We are providing professional development to teachers on our PD days and extended daytime. We are exploring and using the Elevation program to provide teachers with training and resources. We're trying to add more tools to the teacher toolbox to help with growing our ESL population. We also have a focus on vocabulary teaching and acquisition. Each week, our word dog, Mr. Connaughton, provides students with a word of the week on the morning announcements. That introduction is followed by 5 lessons on the word of the week conducted by myself. We are committed to meeting our students where they are, all of our students.
And the final building focus this year will be to continue to work on refining our Tier 1 approach by adopting more explicit instructional approaches. We have created a building walkthrough form with the building leadership team. It focuses on the fidelity of curriculum implementation and eliciting student responses to check for understanding. Those will be the 2 explicit instructional strategies that we focus on this school year. We also want to focus on building scaffolds for Tier 1 instruction. With a shift to focus on Tier 1, some of our teachers need support in understanding how we teach Tier 1 to students who are not quite ready for it. This is an instructional focus for the school year. We know that all students are not in the same academic place, and we need to help them to access their grade level curriculum.
All right, so in conclusion, we are extremely proud and happy with where we ended last school year and the data presented in the state report card. We are outperforming schools that many never thought we would. This success is a direct result of district leadership identifying curriculum, strategies, and goals that help building leadership create a path for improved student growth and achievement. A shift in focus from achievement to growth really makes this approach manageable. Building leadership was able to work with the instructional coaches to provide support for the teachers. The teachers at Crawford Woods are truly dedicated to our vision, and they make a difference for our students and community every day. They inspire students to be their best. The Crawford Woods staff and students deserve a great deal of credit. We are so proud of the work to work alongside them. We know the challenge that lies ahead of us. Keep the success going. I am confident that the teachers and staff at Crawford Woods are ready for this challenge and will persevere. Through all the challenges, the staff and students at Crawford Woods rise to the top. I always say you can tell where the Wildcats have been by the tracks they leave behind. We are going to continue to grow and hold high expectations. We are going to prove that despite the difficult parts of our job, we will still succeed. That is all made possible by the dedication of our teachers. Thank you for your continued support and for celebrating with us today.
Thank you so much for being here in your presentation, and also congratulations on all your gains and all the hard work, seeing it pay off. But you're always consistent, so consistency does pay off. So I appreciate you and your team for that. Also, the goal as far as with the students and having the same mindset of making sure that kids are in school. They come there every day to learn, and those that are challenged in behavior, that the same goal and mindset is to make sure that they are there to the best of your ability. So I love that part, and that you guys came so close to meeting that goal. To me, it's mission accomplished to me. Mm-hmm. So again, congratulations on that, and just having that thought process and concern, because some people's mentality is like, hey, get them out of there. So and we know that will just help, that will just hurt in another area. So I can stay there all day, but no, thank you so much for that consistency and all the things that you're doing over at Crawford Woods, and just the gains. That half a point is huge. Mm-hmm. So keep up the good work, which I know you guys will do, and continue to, get those kids where they need to be in that school. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aaron, I want to thank you first for hosting Dr. Kopus and I a couple weeks ago
Sure.
for a visit at your building, and it just tremendous what's going on over there. I do recall when you were first hired, you said it'll take some time, but you were confident that you could turn it around. And every year, there's been progress. And it's evident that you finally have a staff that has bought into your way and what you're doing over there. When you only lose one teacher to another district, and I think that's because she wanted to be closer to home. And the referrals to the office are down. So the kids are buying into your program over there. And now your scores are up. And I envision next year they're even going to be higher.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, you're doing a great job over there, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Aaron, I just wanted to say congratulations all around. I know it's a long time coming. It's been a long trek for you. What amazes me is that you do the office referrals, you get all those things in place, and I just lost my train of thought.
Happens to
I'm
me all the
old.
time.
I'm old. It happens all the time. I apologize, but I think I know what it was. It's so easy to say, "Hey, I've got low-income kids. I've got a huge Hispanic population, which isn't bad in and of itself, but I've got so much transiency. I have so many students who are not English learners yet. I've got this and this and this. I'm okay. Okay, what are you going to expect? You're going to expect, I'll get a 2 or whatever. You and your staff have not been satisfied with that. You've not just sat there and say, woe is us, we can do this. Doing the referral reduction is huge for you as an administrative staff, because if you don't have to deal with kids all day long, you get to work with teachers and being out in the building. So having all those things where you are going beyond just saying, these are the type of kids we are, and saying, we can make a difference in these kids' lives, and that's what you're doing. And that's the most important thing any of us can do as an educator, is how do we make an impact on these kids' lives? And when they walk out of Crawford Woods, they're not just, barely making it. They're seeing growth, and they're ready for middle school, and they're ready for high school. That all starts at the elementary. You know that, I know that. And those are the important things. So kudos to you and to staff and all the hard work that has gone on over at Crawford Woods. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Principal Hoskins, Vice Principal Ernst, again, thank you for allowing us to visit your school a few weeks ago. It's always fun to do that. A few comments. One of the things that impresses me so much is your focus on your culture in your building, in your school, and the staff morale. I'm a firm believer that if you can create an environment where people are happy and they want to be there, that's certainly part of a winning team. And I think you're doing that. At least the numbers would show that. And did I hear you correctly that you had one staff member in turnover?
Yes.
That's unbelievable. So congratulations on however you're accomplishing that. And your state report card is impressive. You should be very proud of yourself and your team. I like to focus not solely on what the scores are, but to me, more important, it's to focus on what the improvement has been. And if you look at those statistics over the last 6 or 8 years, you've shown incredible improvement. So again, you should be very thankful, very proud of that.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that you feel that your staff and your school is receiving all of the support that you need from the district to accomplish those things that you want to do. Good. And one of my last comments here will be, it's important, it's admirable, the improvement that you've shown, but what's even more impressive than that is you're not resting on your laurels. You've shown us plans of how not only are you going to sustain that achievement, you're going to continue to try to improve on it. So congratulations. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Now, I do need you to educate me on one thing.
Okay.
There were a couple comments during the presentation about your teachers having the option to address Tier 1 behaviors in the classroom. maybe I should know this, but I don't know. What is a tier 1 behavior?
So tier 1 behaviors would be, when we sat down and looked at our data, we had a couple kids, well, we had several kids that had 1 or 2 office referrals for the entire year. So kids that are talking out, kids that are, doing some pretty normal kid stuff, but we're giving them a consequence because they've done it multiple times. They're sending them to the office. We're assigning a lunch detention, a recess detention. Those are all things that we said the teachers agreed with us could manage it in their classroom as far as assigning that. And so that really was where we come in, is when it's chronic behavior that the teachers tried to address in the classroom and it's not working, or it's a major offense like a fight or something like that. Then those kids automatically, that would be more of a tier 2, tier 3 behavior.
Well, again, thank you and congratulations on how well your school's doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Hopkins, Mrs. Ernst, I want to thank you guys for all you do at Crawford Woods. I'm extremely proud of the work that you're doing there. Mr. Hopkins, you said something in your presentation that isn't true. You said that much of the success is because of district administration. It is not. That is because of you and your team that is working together. I have the amazing privilege of getting to work very closely with Mr. Hopkins, Mrs. Ernst, their team on a pretty regular basis. And when the scores came out and he was sharing this with his staff, they came up and they congratulated him. And I think, just speaking to the character of Mr. Hopkins, he said, I don't understand why they're congratulating me. They did this. You are a massive force in that. Some of the words that I recorded while you presented: teacher retention, shared belief, support, consistent gains, improved behavior, and results. What I love is the hard work that you've been doing year after year is starting to show in those numbers, and I know that is just the foundation. So thank you to both of you and every single Wildcat. When you walk in that building, you are correct, Mr. Davidson, Dr. Kopis, that every single staff member is there to support those kids, no matter what the challenges are, and it's amazing to see. So congratulations. I look forward to continuing to cheer you on, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to see gains.
Thank you. Yeah, I am truly blessed with the team of teachers I have around me. We would not see the gains we saw without those people in the picture. So they deserve a great deal of credit.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So our next presentation this evening is from another elementary school, which is Riverview. We'll let them kind of get set up here, but I have the pleasure of introducing Mrs. Anne Marie Barth, who is our principal. Mrs. Barth, if you guys need to cast, they do have to go to that website right there and put in that code. And her assistant principal, Katie Milders, who is actually a former Wildcat. So I'm sure this is full circle here for her tonight.
And support them. We have Hispanic heritage.
We'll enjoy it.
Thank you.
And I'll allow them to introduce their teams. Yep.
Okay. I guys have to do this. Okay. All right, I'll kind of get started. So I'm Anne Marie Barth, principal at Riverview. Katie Milders is my assistant principal. And then I brought 2 of my teachers here. Jamie Dickerson is a title teacher. She previously was teaching kindergarten for how many years, Ms. Dickerson? A lot of years. And then I have Naomi Miller, and she's currently a 3rd grade teacher. But she did title last year. She also subbed for about 4 weeks for a 1st grade teacher who had to go out on medical leave. And there was one other position that she held within that year. So we're lucky to have Naomi, but I invited these 2 mainly because we're going to be talking mainly about Title I and how we use our Title I funding at Riverview, but also because just like Aaron had just mentioned, we really believe in our culture at Riverview, and these 2 people really exemplify it. So I wanted to bring their positivity too. So last year, our theme was believe it and we will achieve it. So we also are working on the achievement part. We realize that progress is extremely important and that will get us eventually to achievement, but we also have a very strong push for Tier 1 as well, instruction. So we're gonna go through some of those things with you, but this year our theme is don't stop believing, because again, we're gonna stay consistent, we're gonna keep our feet on the ground and keep moving forward. Okay, so reflecting on the year, our school year last year, if you'll actually go to the next slide, So these were three of our major steps that we needed to take. So we realized that in our master schedule, we did not have, it wasn't really fit to a true schedule that would accommodate all the needs that we had, whether it be tier 1, even tier 2, tier 3. We had a third grade, for example, they were coming back to the classroom for 30 minutes and then they were going to recess. Then they were coming back to the classroom and then they had this 15-minute random break. So we realized we needed to make a master schedule that was conducive to longer periods of time that could actually get our effective MTSS structure up in place and move along. Our second thing was, so we created that master schedule over the summer. Katie Milders is the scheduling queen, so she can kind of put those little pieces in her brain and be able to figure it out. So she spent time doing that. We also realized that we needed to develop and implement a consistent routine and procedure for our grade level data meetings, which we have every 6 to 8 weeks. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But we really needed to make sure that every grade level was discussing the important pieces of the data. And really, again, being very intentional about our data meetings and how we're looking at data, and then what does that data mean and what do we do from here? So we really worked on making sure that we all were kind of hitting the same types of things when we were going through those. And the last thing was we integrated our grades 4 through 6 within our literacy intervention block. So last year we had started an intervention block before it was mandated this year. We started those with K-3. This year we added on 4 through 6. That is a little bit of a challenge this year because 4th through 6th grade teachers are kind of more your middle school feeling kind of teachers. And so when we said, hey, we need 30 minutes of this intervention time, and math teacher and science teacher, you're going to be teaching a literacy skill. Imagine how that went over, right? So it's been a lot of support, a lot of help from my title teachers and my K-3 teachers saying, hey, we got this. These kiddos are going to go with this teacher. You know, we understand you teach math. Here's this simple way of teaching the literacy skills that we need to hit. So that's one thing also that we included. So we're now a K-6, running a K-6 intervention block. One of our big achievements, and this was one of my big goals, I was a kindergarten teacher. I taught 2nd grade as well, so I'm definitely an early childhood person. But last year we only had 1 star on our K-3 literacy report card. I realized that, hey, if we don't build a foundation, we're not really going to go anywhere. It's going to crumble. And so our push really this past year was, let's build that foundation. Let's really hit on those phonics skills, which is part of the science of reading. And let's improve these kiddos' scores here from the base up. And you'll see a little bit later about kindergarten. I mean, their scores were phenomenal. So K-3 literacy score, we went from 1 star up to 2 stars. So that was very exciting for us at Riverview. Okay, and then I'm gonna have Katie talk a little bit about where we also improved our English language learners.
So to date, Riverview has the highest number of English language learners of the elementary buildings. Our ESL students make up about 22% of our overall student population, and those are only the students that the state counts as English language learners. We have a lot more students that receive support and services for their English language development that the state does not count towards those numbers. Our team of 4 ESL teachers ended up serving 151 students during the 23-24 school year who were included in our state report card scores. On our state report card, our ESL team earned 5 points on the gap closing component for our English language learners. A score of 5 is the absolute highest possible score our team could have achieved in this area, which shows that not only are our ESL teachers implementing resources provided by the district during their small groups to help grow their students, but all of our teachers are implementing scaffolds and supports in the classroom to help our English language learners across grade level content. Last year, when we implemented our K-3 literacy intervention block to address gaps we saw in our students' phonics skills. As I'm sure you can imagine, when implementing any new initiative or program, we hit some speed bumps along the way. But it was well worth it because our kids made huge gains from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I want to highlight kindergarten because they were truly the model of what we can achieve when we have enough adults allocated to serving students in need to make the most effective intervention groups. We still had co-teachers in several of the kindergarten classrooms last year, And that, in addition to our ESL and title staff, allowed the grade level to run 8 small intervention groups for 30 minutes every single day. By the end of the year, with these interventions, 73% of Riverview's kindergarten students were meeting grade level benchmarks for their early literacy skills, 57% more than were meeting those benchmarks at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so as you can tell from the data, if we again lay that foundation from the bottom up, we expect to see more consistent growth. So how we're going to move forward now. Okay, so building goals. We talked about improving our early literacy proficiency score even higher. I told Aaron already, we're coming for you. So luckily he's kind of laid the path out for me. So now I took some ideas from Aaron. No, but that's obviously, again, one of our things. And again, building that foundation, right? So we're pouring into our littles as much as possible. We know that if we can intervene early on, we have more time for tier 1 later on, and enrichment. Another one is we really want we want to increase our percentage of students who hit their RIT score, so their MAP growth score, per grade level per subject area by 10%. So again, we're not making these huge, I want 50% more, right? We're doing little gains that then give us the bigger boom at the end. The third one that we are looking at, we're realizing again, yes, our population has changed. We are the school that has the most students that are Spanish speaking. We also have a small Micronesian population, and we have a couple kiddos that speak French and are from some sort of area in Africa. But mainly we've got Spanish speaking families. We've noticed that that's a barrier sometimes, right, for our student to be able to support our students and our families. However, what we also notice is, and they'll be able to talk a little bit more about it, but our families want to participate. They want to come and join us. They want to know more. They just don't know how yet, and language is the barrier. So we've put a couple things in place that these ladies are going to talk about, but really just engaging our community and our families to promote Riverview and all the great things that we do.
So Dr. Kopis, you asked Aaron about the tier 1 and what that means, and I turned to Anne Marie and I said, I'm gonna talk about that. When we talk about our instructional cone, we are talking about how students are served to meet their individual educational needs. It's important to note that the ideal cone doesn't necessarily take into account barriers that you may face depending on your student population. Doesn't take into account barriers like language proficiency or the occurrence of a global pandemic. And it doesn't take into account how those barriers impact student instruction. So when we talk tier 1, that refers to the students whose educational needs are met completely in their grade level, whole group instruction. Ideally, 80% of students in a building can have their needs met this way. Tier 2 then refers to students whose needs are met both through grade level whole group instruction and some small group interventions to fill gaps that may exist in their skills. Ideally, we want about 15% of students needing this small group gap closing intervention. Tier 3 then refers to students who, in addition to the whole group instruction, in addition to that small group gap closing, they also need very individualized small group intensive interventions. These are students who have the largest gaps in skills and ideally is only going to be about 5% of your student population. So you want the most amount of students in your tier 1, then the least amount of students in your tiers 2 and 3. Here at Riverview, our students have been making incredible gains, but we're not done growing because we still have a large group of students that have gaps, particularly in their literacy skills. Our instructional cone is what we call flipped at the moment, with the smaller group of students being the ones that only need that whole group grade level content. And the largest groups of our students need direct, targeted intervention to address gaps in their skills. According to our beginning of the year MAP reading test, which provides data about comprehensive literacy skills in grades K to 6, 83% of our students need some sort of intervention. Our beginning of the year Amplify, which is a measure of those early literacy skills, like letter sounds or blending sounds together to be able to read words, showed us that 69% of our students in grades K to 3 need some sort of intervention in these beginning skills. This really shows how important our staff, like our title teachers, ESL teachers, and intervention specialists are to meeting student needs at Riverview. Because with the right staff, we are making incredible progress with our students that have the highest level of need.
So, our action steps. We're talking, again, this is my main view is how are we leveraging our title staff? We have 5 title teachers in our building, which is necessary based on the numbers of students that you see that need our services. Our title teachers, well, they'll tell you a little bit more about them, but they are basically in charge of a couple grade levels, and they go in together with the grade level teachers. Kiddos are grouped up by their individual skill, and then are given that targeted intervention at that time for, again, 30 minutes a day. So it really gives the kiddos a chance to be in a smaller group setting, more individual turns, more reps. We realize that more reps a lot of times helps to solidify the information in these kiddos' brains. So I'm going to have Jamie talk about more specifics about title and what that looks like.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I sometimes speak loudly, so if it's too loud, just, wave at me. I do want to begin by apologizing to you, Mrs. Blevins. I typically greet you with a sweet high kick, but this didn't quite feel like the right place and time. So rain check on the high kick? Rain check on the high kick. All right, let's talk about everybody's favorite 4-letter word, data. All right, so when we are creating our title groups, we are looking at the data, the results of these assessments that we're giving the students. So we're looking at 3 different assessments primarily. We're looking at MAP, we're looking at Amplify, and we're looking at OG, which stands for Orton-Gillingham. We use these 3 data points. We call that triangulated data. It just means looking at 3 sources of data. So we look at these triangulated data points, and we look at the kiddos that score in the red. These are the kiddos who are going to require the intervention that title provides. And this data shows us the focus for each individual child. Taking data from multiple sources also gives us both a broad view of every single child in the school and a very specific view of every kid in the child. And let's take, for example, a student who's on red in MAP, but they might be in the green or the blue in Amplify. Green and blue, good. Red, These kiddos probably aren't struggling with those foundational skills. They're going to need a literacy skill such as comprehension, or they're going to need a skill such as fluency. We've realized that MAP might not target the best data for our K-2 students, and at the same time, Amplify might not give us the best data for our 3-6 students, but all together, we're getting a great view of every kid. And that's why at Riverview, we don't put all of our eggs in one basket or all of our emphasis on one assessment. Our groups are based on specific needs, not necessarily which teacher. I think that was the old way of doing things. Oh, I've got 5 kids over here who need a little help. I'm going to pull these 5 now and these 5 over here. I'm pulling groups, 3 kids over here, 1 kid over here, and 2 kids over here because they all need help in the same skill. These groups are 30 minutes of targeted literacy intervention. They're daily, and every student performing below grade level benchmark is receiving this 30 minutes of intervention every day. So let's talk about if you walked into my title room. You got to experience that. If you walked into my title room, the first thing I'd want you to know is it is not a quiet 30 minutes. It's not a quiet 30 minutes because we know that when a child says what they're learning and touches what they're learning and sees what they're learning and hears what they're learning, it connects better in the brain and they're going to learn it faster. We call that multi-sensory learning. The students are using tools such as screens, such as sand, such as sandpaper, so they're not just seeing what they're learning, they're feeling what they're learning also, and they're repeating it. I taught my students the letter T yesterday in a couple of my groups. How many times did I hear t, T says t, t, T says t? But guess what? When I reviewed it today, They knew it. We progress monitor our students every 1 to 2 weeks for about 6 to 8 weeks. During this 6 to 8 weeks, we're meeting regularly with our grade level teams. We're focusing on student progress, the effectiveness of the interventions we're providing, and we're problem solving. How can we do better? We always want to do better. After 6 to 8 weeks, we have a data meeting. This is meant for decision making. We don't make any changes to our groups until the 6 to 8 weeks are through. These groups do not change until we have collected enough data to prove that these students are ready to either stay or have a change in their intervention. Formal team data meetings at that 6 to 8 week mark include the ESL staff, the title staff, the special ed staff, and also the general educators. We're using data-driven decision-making to determine whether students should continue with their current intervention. Should we modify it? Do they need to go to a different intervention? Or do we need to end a child's intervention and they can be moved into a tier 1 group? The goal is always to push the kiddos in the red to the yellow, from the yellow to the green, and ultimately, wouldn't we love to have every kiddo in the green? We would. Thank you so much for letting me share about Title with you.
So like Jamie talked about, instruction and assessment isn't just a one-time event. It's a process, and it's a process that at Riverview, we are working hard to go through over and over again to get our kids where they need to be. In addition to this process, though, the state has a lot of new mandates related to literacy and instruction that we as a staff have to address. Screening for dyslexia is included in these mandates. We have to administer approved assessments to identify which students need intervention, and then there are mandates for how exactly we're allowed to intervene and how we are allowed to monitor progress towards those students' learning goals. In addition to dyslexia law, the state also mandates the third grade reading guarantee, where students have to score above a certain cut score to be considered on track. And then if students are off track, teachers have to prepare a reading improvement plan to help close those gaps. So how exactly are we meeting these state mandates at Riverview? This is where our title staff is truly imperative. Our 5 title teachers are helping to assess and group students for intervention. We have currently at Riverview 261 students who are required by law to receive reading intervention. And through our K-6 AIM block and our title teachers, we're serving 261 students every single day.
Okay, so that gave you a pretty good overview, I think, of mainly what the title staff is doing when they go in. As I mentioned before, I think family engagement, we've noticed that we need our families, obviously. And I'm sure that, people have found different ways, but again, there's multiple barriers sometimes to our kiddos. Sometimes our families are working third shift. Sometimes mom's home with the kiddos and she can't make it up to the curriculum night or conference night because she's got the littles. So we're working through those barriers now as a team to decide how are we going to break down those barriers to be able to get all of our families to participate in our activities. So I'm going to have Naomi come and talk to you here about the ways that we've increased our family engagement this year and our plans for future.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. Like Ms. Barth said, we are going to be talking about families and the necessity of them partnering with them in our school day to day. So we're not just doing the work at Riverview, we really want to invite families to be a part of what we're doing each and every day. We're making huge initiatives with families to help support their child's learning at home. A lot of our title funds have been allocated to help support academic success in the home. We have incredible events planned for families this school year. It starts out with our curriculum night, which was on September 5th. This night was a hit. It was so much fun, and we really felt like families left having a better understanding of what their child is learning each and every day. During this time, parents got to come in and hear and ask questions about the components of their child's learning. They were giving resources. So for some classrooms, that might be math, flashcards, or a deck of cards to help with their math fact fluency, or to engage them in math games at home. For other classrooms, that looks like packets of comprehension questions in English and in Spanish to make sure that when parents are reading with their children, they know what questions to ask. No matter what it looked like, we wanted parents to walk away with tangible materials in their hands so that they knew how to support their child at home. We want parents to understand that they can help at home, and we really do have to work together. And thanks to our wonderful parent-teacher committee, we got to raffle off some prizes as well. In tandem with that, we sent home a parent survey. This survey allowed for two-way communication. You and I both know that the key to any great relationship is the ability to converse. You need to be able to communicate, to talk, and also to hear. And we really want to make sure we are hearing our parents, their needs, and working together with them through problem solving so that we can make sure their child is successful. Additionally, we sent home a family compact, and that ensures that everyone knows we are all on the same team. Teacher, administration, students, families, we are one big team, and on our team, no one gets left behind. We have a Right to Read week, and during that week, we get to celebrate literacy in our building and celebrate literacy around the world. This is a week that kids love, and they are going to enjoy it so much again this year. And finally, we have our family game night. During this night, we invite families to come in. We explain games to them. They have a chance to sit down and play games with their child. These games are centered around comprehension, fluency, skills that we really want students to know and hone in on, as well as just day-to-day communication skills. And then at the end, we are going to raffle off some games so parents will have something to walk out the door with as well. All of these events are aimed at providing understanding and access to families. However, a huge portion of making this happen is analyzing how we can make each event equitable. We want our families to really have a good picture of what their kid is learning. So we want families to come in to our classrooms for curriculum night, for example, and walk away with a clear picture. And however, we also want to make sure that we are overcoming barriers in the way. So Ms. Barth talked about how sometimes language is a barrier. We noticed that we needed to have translators in each grade level to ensure that families were hearing this in a language that they understood, so that they could really take this information and run with it. And that is just one barrier. We also have several others that we face, such as childcare, or such as some of our families work very hard and they work third shift or have multiple jobs. And so we are going to continue to problem solve to see how we can overcome these barriers, because it matters. It matters when we get to work alongside of our family. And it matters because we believe that when parents have this information in their hands, and when we are doing everything we can do at school, that kids really start to take off. And we know our families want to be a part of the learning that their kids are doing each and every day. We believe that parents should get to have an understanding of grade level expectations academically and where their child is at in view of those expectations. We want parents, when their kid comes home with an HD word paper, to know that that's a phonics paper. I want the students and my parents to come, for their kid to come home, and maybe their kid is finger stretching a word and they're using that language. And we want our kiddos and their parents to know that finger stretching means sounding it out. Because the more of a team we are, the better the results are in the end. There are so many benefits to increasing parent knowledge about a day-to-day life in school, what our curriculum looks like, how we're using it, how we're supporting their kids, how they can help support at home, and what resources we can give away to help them. And it's of the utmost importance to us to make sure we are supporting kids, not just in the classroom, but at home. And we are working alongside families to accomplish this goal. Thank you.
So what exactly do we believe at Riverview Elementary? We believe in the work that we do.
We believe that what we do and how we do it impacts our students' success.
Most of all, we believe in our students' incredible ability to grow and to achieve.
As Royals, we won't stop believing in our students, our families, our community, and each other. Thanks for continuing to believe in us, and we can take questions if you have any.
Nicely done.
Thank you so much for one, being here and presenting, and just your enthusiasm towards everything. And I'm going to be hearing the song, Don't Stop. Okay, so anyway. I'll spare you. But no, good stuff, and just all your growth and just all the things you have implemented to be able to help those students be able to obtain their goals and where they need to be, and just the timeline of having things mapped out. I'm just super excited about hearing everything that's going on at Riverview, and in true MAG fashion, she would say this is one of her best parts of being on the board is being able to hear the building updates and you guys coming in and sharing all the wonderful things that are coming in, that are happening in your building. So again, continue to keep up the good work and just the enthusiasm, because that's contagious to the students. You guys coming in prepared and ready to go. They're going to come in, and want to give you guys and do their best. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for hosting Dr. Kopus and I. And I know we stayed a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we got in such a good conversation with you and learned so much about your building. And I do thank you for that. And we were also there at an opportune time when the students were arriving. And I was so amazed. Your teachers came out of their classrooms, came down, were greeting the students. The students are coming in, big smiles, hugging the teachers, wanting to be there. And that was amazing. I loved it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the numbers you mentioned. Now, what percentage is English second language?
So we have 22%, but our Hispanic population is about 55%. So some of those kiddos have exited out of their ESL services.
There's still a barrier there.
Yes, for sure. And mainly with their parents. So that's why we're saying, hey, when we have these parent nights, that's what we need to really look at.
How many, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but how many students would that be? Would you
So we have,
guesstimate?
in our building, we have about 680 right now, so about 55% of that. Yeah.
350. And you have 4 English
Or
second-
ESL teachers, yes, yes,
trying to meet the needs of those students.
right.
I was in Croatia last summer, and we were in a village, and it was just my wife and I, and no one spoke English. It was scary, trying to communicate. So you have that many students here that you're trying to teach that don't understand the English language. And I can relate to what those kids are going through, and I feel for you, and you're still accomplishing it. You're not giving up. You're
Right.
not using it as an excuse. You're working with these students and you're getting them there. And you also mentioned, I think it was, I forget the number of students that require,
Reading improvement plans.
for reading.
261.
And that's because of the language barrier, I'm sure.
That and some other barriers too that we're up against, sure.
And I do recall from our conversation at your building that you also have students are in and out, in and out. You don't have them a lot of them for a long period of time. And you're dealing with that. And you still have respectable scores. And you have just an awesome staff down there. Everyone I talk to, they love being there. They love the community, they love their students, and I just keep up the good work. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I wanted to springboard real fast off of what you said, Dave, on the language barriers and the families. My limited knowledge of some of the Hispanic families is they want their students to succeed. They want their students to move ahead. And creating that partnership with them, they just don't always know how to do it. And like you said, the language barriers on that, and having those opportunities to come in and talk with you guys and having those relationships with the schools. Because it's scary coming into another country and not knowing the schools. I mean, I've had the same sort of taste where you go in and you can't talk about what you want to ask the questions you want. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. And having those opportunities to meet with the families, I think, is an incredible opportunity for you guys to make those inroads with them to help their students succeed. The other thing that popped up in your presentation is seeing those kindergartners going from the 16% benchmark, which we've always known as a problem in Hamilton. We're trying to find ways to address it. But moving them from 16% to 73%, congratulations.
Thank you.
I know that's everybody on board to do that, because we all know if you don't do it then, it's harder and harder to catch up. So I think you're going to see great results for that into the future as we see those students moving on from one grade level to the other. The other thing, and you said at the very beginning, I'm after you, Aaron, which is good because Aaron needs it's okay, you go for Aaron. But I'm hoping, as I'm sitting here as a former principal, and yes, it was years ago, and yes, I did ride dinosaurs to work, and pterodactyl and all. Anyway, but I sit here and I go, boy, I wish I thought about that. I wish I'd had that. I wish we'd done this. I hope there's opportunities and that you principals can share some of these strategies. And I date myself when I say Harry Wong always said, Harry Wong, I never had an original thought. I stole everything. And I hope there's a culture within Hamilton of thievery among principals and teachers to say, how did you do that? And then incorporating it. And, it's not a one size fits all for every school. And somebody's doing something, you can't always do it for your own school. But having that opportunity to say, that's an idea. How can I make it work in my environment? How can I make it to be successful for our kids? I think is an incredible opportunity. So go ahead and steal something from Aaron. If you're in his office, feel free to take whatever's in his office too. But anyway, congratulations.
Sure.
I know it's a difficult job. I keep seeing principals and staffs working hard to find ways to meet their kids' needs, and you guys are doing it. And congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Principal Barth, Vice Principal Milders, and Mrs. Dickerson and Mrs. Miller, thank you for the information. Principal Barth, early in your presentation, and I don't remember verbatim what you said, but something to the effect that you had looked at your schedule and the timing of your class and movement of your students, and that you decided to make certain adaptations in your schedule to allow your educators to be more efficient in their instructional time. To me, that shows incredible forward thinking. So I thank you for that, and that's what we want you to continue to do. And I think it might have been Mrs. Blevins that mentioned this in reference to Vice Principal Milders. Did she go to that school?
Former teacher.
Oh, a former teacher. Okay. Well, what a great success story. And I commend you for that, and I thank you for that, and I'm glad that you're there. That's great. And when you were talking about your building goals and you started to discuss your idea of community engagement, how wonderful is that? If you're able to, and I hope you're able to accomplish all of those things. And I don't know if all of our schools do that. I think all of our schools should do that. I know Highland had this week, they had their walk to school events, which I think is wonderful. But anyway, what great idea that is. And that's something that you should share with your fellow principals also. And Vice Principal Milders, I think you were the one who mentioned this. You have 4 ESL teachers. How many do you need?
How many can you give us?
And I'm going to put Mr. Wright on the spot here in a moment. But no, seriously, I mean, you have an incredibly high Spanish-speaking student population. I know some of them have tested out. You have 4 now, which is probably the most in the district, I would think.
They do have the highest.
But how many do you need?
Well, I can kind of answer that. We are equipping our gen ed teachers with, actually Aaron put it up, Elevation, which is a resource for trying to bridge that gap within the gen ed classroom. So all the teachers have a log into that and they've had training on that. Okay. So that kind of helps when the students are in their classroom for that tier 1 time where everybody's receiving the same instruction, right? As a whole group. So, and those can be very simple things such as, again, repetitions, picture cues, hand motions, things like that, that kind of help a kiddo figure out the gist of what's going on. We also have, to be honest with you, some of these kids in the classroom who have been now in the U.S. for a couple of years are translating sometimes quickly. So she said, get out your yellow folder, and they're translating that to their friend at first. So honestly, we've done a lot of peer kind of coaching as well within the gen ed classroom. So really the ESL teachers are pulling these students out for about a half an hour. The newcomers, they get a half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the afternoon since they're newcomers. But the other kiddos who have been there for a little while, and that depending on their OELPS score, they get pulled out generally a half an hour per day. What we would love to do is really build more of a push-in model so that our teachers can support the gen ed teachers within the classroom. And then it really just be a cohesive teaching style. That would really be the helpful part. So when you say how many, I don't know, to be honest with you. But as far as the type of support, it would require a couple more people to be able to make sure we're hitting up every kiddo and what they need, but then also supporting in the gen ed classroom.
All right, well, thank you. Well, Mr. Wright, I imagine we recruit for those positions consistently.
Yeah, we do, and honestly, what we do is we actually keep track of our numbers. So just to give you an example, last year we had over 250 new ELL students coming to the district from August through May. So we added staff throughout the year last year, and the state gives you certain standards that you have to fall in between. As far as the number of students that can be served, when you're looking at like ELL populations, when you're looking at special ed populations. So we always try to maintain those. We're always constantly looking at those from a staffing standpoint, and we have to make adjustments. Last spring, just to give you an idea, we added 2.5 ESL teachers. We added 3 intervention specialists, not because people left, but because our numbers have increased at that rate where we had to provide those extra staff. So those were new hires. Those weren't replacement. Those weren't somebody retiring or somebody leaving for another job. So we're always looking at those things. I work alongside with Mr. Watkins, who's our Executive Director of Special Ed, Mr. John Drow, who's our Executive Director who handles ELL services. We're always looking at those numbers kind of on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis to see, are we needing to add staff to make sure we're accommodating the needs of all of our buildings. And I'm going to tell you, that's just going to continue to be something that we're going to see an increase. And that's going to be an increase in costs because every time you are adding staff, we're adding not only the staff cost, we're adding the insurance costs, we're adding the retirement costs, we're adding all those things. But we have to maintain a certain level based on what the state defines as these are acceptable numbers that we can provide the staffing for.
I understand. And Ms. Miller, you made a comment also during your presentation, something to the effect that parents can help at home. Now, I don't have any data here to throw any numbers at you, but I know that to be true. And I truly believe that whatever parents do or don't do at home is critically important to either the success or failure of a student. I recently had someone approach me who currently has some grandchildren that are homeschooled. And they had questions about, what do our schools do and what do we teach and things like that. And I tried to refer them to the appropriate people because I wasn't the right person to answer all their questions. But I can say this, if people knew and truly understood what our staff does to help our students succeed, they would be thankful to have their students in the Hamilton City School District. I firmly believe that. Well, I just know that to be the truth. So thank you so much for everything that you do. Now, Principal Barth, one last question. We've had a chance to talk a few times, and I would say you have a good sense of humor, right?
I do.
I have one.
It's very healthy.
I have one last story for you. When Vice Principal Milders was speaking there at the podium, I was taking some notes here on some of the comments she made, and I was thinking of something that I wanted to ask you. And I looked up, and I thought you had left the room.
I disappeared.
But you hadn't actually left the room. You were just standing behind her, and I couldn't see you anymore. So.
Listen, I mesh in with student lines all the time, and then kids look around and go, Miss Barth, I didn't even see you there. I said, that's the point.
Dr. Kopis, you picked up on something. We have a lot of fun with Mrs. Barth. It's all in good fun. She gives it right back, but I almost said something as she came in, but I thought, no, I won't tonight, as she pulled down her microphone. So I'd just like to piggyback off of that. I do want to point out that Mrs. Barth and Mrs. Milders, this is their second year. They started together. They came in as a brand new administrative team to that building together. Mrs. Barth had been an AP there for 1 year before, and I just really love the work that they're doing. They tell each other they're missing piece all of the time, and you can feel that synergy in the work that they're doing. They believe in it. The two teachers you see here, I wish I could bottle half of their energy and take it home with me, but you are right, Mr. Davidson. If you walk through that building, there's 40 more teachers that have this same passion and enthusiasm and support for students. And so I just love the intentionality in what you're doing. You're supporting every kid where they are. It's not, no, these kids can't. It's, yes, they can, and it's our job to figure it out. And you feel that every time you walk into Riverview. It's important to be a Royal. We wear that with pride. And so I just thank you for what you're doing. I believe bringing our parents on board will just help us accelerate growth and opportunity. And I, like you, I can't imagine for some of our families that send their kids, that can't communicate what their kids need or know what they're walking into. And so that's a real situation that we face. And I think that Riverview does it really well, and you help every kid, adult feel safe and supported in your building. So I'm just excited to see. She did say she was coming from Mr. Hopkins in a principal meeting. And to speak to that, Mr. Sprague, we are working very closely with our principals to share best practice. So we've brought back where they meet every single month to share ideas, to talk about data, to look at those pieces. I know that Mrs. Barth has talked about having Mr. Hopkins coming over and talking to her staff, and that's what I see. The foundation you're setting is very similar to some of the things I've seen that he's set before. And I'm just excited to see where you go, and I'll be cheering you along the whole way through. I will see your kick when I come over next time.
You will. You know you will.
Thank you, Riverview.
Dr. Kopis, I would add one thing. Miss Milders learned her math skills from a great teacher along the way.
Oh,
So.
okay. Well, that's one. Very good.
Former student of mine.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. The next item that we have on here, if you remember at the last meeting, I kind of brought up the notion that I'd love to schedule a board retreat. And so thank you to my amazing administrative assistant, Mrs. Fuller. We have some tentative dates, and I wanted to see if those would work for the board. The first date that we have available, we'd like to do this at the Coach House here in Hamilton. I'd like to keep it in Hamilton, would be Thursday, November 21st. I know that's the week before Thanksgiving, so I wanted to see if that would work. I was thinking a 5 o'clock start.
I'll be out of town.
You'll be out of town, okay? The second date that they threw out is Wednesday, December 4th. That's a no?
That's all.
Okay, well, we will keep looking for dates. Those are the big ones that we saw. I know there are members of our team. I'd really like this to be an opportunity for all 5 of the board members, Jeremy, myself, and Mike, to be a part of that meeting. So I will put something out in email if that's okay with everyone to get a date on the books.
What time were you, if it's on the 4th, what time were you thinking?
5 o'clock, probably 5 to 7, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I just noticed I have at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Deposition of the next one.
Okay, well, we'll find a date. These were just the ones. They're not open on Monday and Tuesdays, so that limits us a little bit. We're looking at some other options too, so I'll put those out. That's my birthday. That's a great day, Dave. Yeah. I also just have a few additional comments I want to make before we go on to the next item here. One, I do want to acknowledge today was the end of first quarter. It is crazy to think that we are already a fourth of the way through the year. I'm so proud of our students and staff for what they've done. Do families remember we are on fall break for students, so there's no school on Friday or Monday. Our teachers will be busy in the classroom tomorrow finalizing grades. Report cards will be sent home on Friday, October 18th. So those will go out next Friday for first quarter, and we'll start strong second quarter. The second thing I wanted to mention, a few weeks ago, we had an amazing homecoming week and a homecoming dance that celebrated a great fall season. As many of our board knows, we have an amazing community. We have so many different partners in our community that come forward to help support our students in a variety of ways. 2 said businesses or community entities that really stepped up and went above and beyond was the Central YMCA and All 8 Up. And so I provided in front of you copies of letters that we have drafted to send to acknowledge them. So the Central YMCA actually opened their doors to provide showers, makeup, hairdos. I heard there was a lot of hairspray flying, clothing, to help our girls and our gentlemen feel their absolute best on that evening. All 8 Up provided free meals to any student and their date that could not afford a meal. It was amazing to see the turnout. My team actually went last Friday and we presented a thank you letter in person, had an amazing meal, and I know they're already planning to do this again next year. So I talked about how can we get involved to publicize that more and connect that. And I think it just goes to the heart of the city. So just in front of you, I shared a copy of the letters that we're providing to both of those entities. And then because we won't come back again to meet before this next event, I do want to remind you that Wednesday, October 23rd, we have our Harry T. Wilkes Celebrates Education Banquet. That's at 6 p.m. at the Courtyard Marriott. You should have each received at our last meeting a little flyer. If you don't have it, let me know and I'll make sure you have it. Okay, Melissa has them if not. But I just wanted to make sure since we won't come back together.
I did. But
Yes.
If you want a hard copy, I can get you.
Yes, okay. And then the last item on our agenda this evening is actually, Mr. Colwell's going to come from behind the camera tonight, which he absolutely loves. And he is going to speak to us a little bit about TV Hamilton.
Picture the mics.
So knowing where I am on the agenda, I am going to make this very brief. Last night I did this for City Council in about 2.5 minutes. So we have some very exciting news to share. Before I do that, I want to thank the district for all the support over the many, many years. I've been a proud employee. I was talking to the financial guy that Melissa made me come in and see just a minute ago, but he said, "You've been here since 1997. I said, "As a full-time employee, yes, but thank you for all of your support, because without it, I couldn't be making this awesome announcement." A little bit of background, if you haven't heard, our studio is located in 20 High Street. There's some activity happening in that building, and we're going to be relocating. When that started, the ball rolling and the fun ball it's been, the first call was to Spectrum to let them know we're moving our service. Well, they took 3 months to figure out if we were a channel on their service. But with that, they said, you have to do some updates. So we were faced then with not only are they going to charge us to move our service, but we're going to have to spend about $5,000 to update our equipment that's between like 15 and 18 years old. No service available, and these manufacturers have stopped supporting them. We could spend that $5,000, and that when we unplug them and turn them off, unplug them, they would not turn back on when we took them, and then we're just out that money. So the board and I discussed updating our entire Spectrum cable equipment for programming. And I'm happy to report that we just found out yesterday that the Community Foundation gave us a grant to cover half of that cost. So a major expense, but we are very well financed by them to help us. The number one community supporter has to be the Community Foundation. But what this means for us is we're not just upgrading for the sake of upgrading, but this upgrade is going to, first off, our cable channel is going to be on high definition on cable for the first time ever. Second thing is, let me get back up my notes here. Second thing, we're going to, when we go live, we'll be able to go live on multiple social media platforms at once, but we'll also be able to go live on cable at the same time. This will be huge for, say, a Hamilton High home football game. During the Princeton game online, we had 60,000 plays on that game. I mean, it was the perfect storm, no pun intended, that we did that. But it's just insane. And what that opens up for us is just unbelievable. And the third thing that this upgrade will do for us is the company that we're going with has an over-the-top app. And this app, you can download it on your Roku, on your Fire Stick, on your Apple TV, your smartphone, whatever, and you can watch TV Hamilton online there, streaming 24/7, as well as going to, Dustin and I will be talking, but you go into tvhamilton.com and click Watch Live, and there it'll be online. So we have opened up our programming exponentially to what we can offer here in the coming months. When this, I'm not going to put a timeline, but the first of the year is what we're shooting for, but that may give or take a window. But that's what I wanted to announce, and to thank the district for the support, as well as the Community Foundation for all that they've done in increasing our value to our funders. And since I have just one more moment, in 2 weeks, you will probably see 60 or 80 representatives from stations like us here in Hamilton, because somebody thought it was a good idea for TV Hamilton to host a conference for the Alliance of Community Media Central State Conference. So we'll have channels from Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana here in Hamilton for a midweek conference. So hope to bump the economy with a little bit of. They say they like to go out and eat and drink in our restaurants and stuff like that after the day's festivity. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. But if not, I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's happening at TV Hamilton.
This means, I mean, being on the board, I've watched this.
You've heard this a few times too.
Yeah, I've seen this a few times. What this means for us is that people who don't necessarily have access to YouTube or Facebook, they can watch everything on Spectrum TV, even if they're not, or they can watch us through the app. And we're talking live stream football games, basketball games, concerts, all sorts of opportunities have opened up to us that we've never had before, reaching a whole new audience. Watching a show in standard def is no fun anymore after you've seen high def, and now being able to move into the high definition arena, it's taken a lot of work, and I want to thank Steve for all his work on this, because Steve is Mr. TV Hamilton. We probably should buy a hat for you. Oh yeah, we did.
I have one.
But he has done so much to move that part of that communications in the media of TV Hamilton that has helped us as a school district, helped us as a community. I'm applauding you very much inside my head, but we wouldn't be able to do that without Steve's professionalism and enthusiasm for what he does. And we've been together many, many years on many occasions, and he's a professional who seriously wants to do what's best for our community. And I think it's great. And Community Foundation coming through. Are we allowed to say how much it is?
Yes, it is just over $16,000.
So it's a matching grant. And I want to add something else. Steve is, we provide money as a school district. The Community Foundation provides money. The city provides money. We realized in our board meetings that isn't enough to support what we want to do. So I would hate to say it this way, but you offer other services as a TV Hamilton, working with Miami, working with the hospital, working with funeral homes, working with, I know I'm forgetting other entities around town.
That's okay.
Okay, but there's other entities that work with TV Hamilton.
Community first.
Community First,
Kettering,
yeah, we can't forget that. That pay for those services that allow us to buy additional things.
And we did last year, Jeremy could dispute or, well, some of it went to the community foundation, but we took in about 25,000 extra because of the work that we did for outside organizations.
It's not just saying, coming back to the board every so often and saying, hey, we need more money. We're looking at different ways to increase the value, to help our coffers a little bit as a TV Hamilton, so. But again, Steve, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
That's all I have this evening, Ms. Matthews.
Thank you so much for all your information and really good update, because I was able to watch the game on the streaming service, so I appreciate that opportunity to have that resource in TV Hamilton, which is so valuable to our district. Let's see, what do we have? Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 24th. It will begin at 4 p.m. It is a full meeting. Yep, so it's a full meeting, business and work session. Yep, so we'll be here. Yep, executive if needed. What do we have next? Oh, yep, so I'll take motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second. We're adjourned.